America is crazy for backyard chickens. Over Easy Chicken Coop offers high quality, easy to assemble coops that are easy to ship and easy to handle. We also offer this popular feeder and water, introduced only 6 months ago. We have sold thousands and can hardly keep up with demand. Order by November 30th for spring delivery, and we will give you 90 days to pay. We are already booked for all of January, so don't delay. Order today.
Welcome to the NRHA Virtual All-Industry Conference. Jim Robish is a senior partner of the Farnsworth Group, a market research and strategy consulting firm that specializes in hardware, home improvement, and building supply markets. Robish directs all retailer and wholesale service activities for the firm, including customer intelligence, brand positioning, advertising, market expansion, customer satisfaction, consumer research, contractor satisfaction, market image, growth, and strategic planning. In his presentation today, he will discuss the 5 disruptors challenging the home improvement industry and how you can rise above them in your operation.
Hello, I'm Jim Robish with the Farnsworth Group, and once again, I'm extremely pleased to be presenting to you at this somewhat unique NRHA Industry Conference. Today, we're going to be covering disruptors, and to say the least, if you've been around or anywhere for the last 4 months, there's plenty of them going around. So a little bit on the data intensive side on the presentation. I will move with dispatch, but certainly be cognizant that you're trying to read them and get along with them. So I'll try and remember that as well. So title today, Disruptors Challenging the Hardware Home Improvement Industry. Kind of a broad title, which was good. So let's get into it. Start off, maybe set the stage. Certainly, as we all know, the world's changed in just a blink of an eye. And while we've always lived in times of disruption, today there are more disruptors to contend with, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. The consequences, though, of not recognizing these or recognizing them and not responding are much more significant because it is changing the way that we do business and go about living our lives. Today's disruptors have and will continue to redefine how you think about your business and plan your strategy. There's no way you can get around it. And the goal today is to present what we feel, certainly me and the Farnsworth Group, are 5 of the key things that we would view as disruptors, maybe a little bit different than what some people would classify or term as a disruptor, and make you aware of those so when you come across them, it's not like you're getting blindsided like we did March 4th when COVID hit us. One thing for sure is today's disruptors are going to change how your customers shop, how they purchase, and how you must go after them in the market, and how you got to think about your business in the future, because it will be different. One of the things I think is interesting is that when Dan Trottenchek and I were talking about this session early on, I had a question as to how he wanted to define disruptors. And as usual, he always has a great line. He's a brilliant man that he is. Don't tell him I said that. Disruptors are any force that cause change. And I thought, well, that's great. That kind of leaves it open to anything. But they take on many forms. It could be world events. It could be market shifts. It could be changing consumer attitudes, individual companies, individual people, countries, political issues, demographic changes, shopping behavior, and more and more and more. But the key thing is there are forces that cause change, and when things change, you have to change along with it. So let's cover, I guess, the first one, and it breeds the other ones. COVID-19 pandemic, and it's been breeding a bunch of them for sure. A lot of times there's one thing that creates a new disruptor or environment of disruptor recreation, and say that really fast. And what I mean by that is There are things or people or companies that possibly were disruptors, but something like this just amplifies it. And COVID-19 certainly created a breeding ground for that. Go to a store today and you'll see it. Walk down the street and you'll see it. I'm fortunate my mask is right here. I'm just not wearing it so I can speak. The pandemic is a major or a mega disruptor for sure, but it also served as one of these catalysts for breeding an array of new disruptors. And that's where we're probably going to spend the most time today. They're usually associated with negatives or threats. However, the one thing I always like to stress to people is, why do we always jump to the negative? If we have a disruptor, what are the opportunities that disruption is presenting to us in our companies? So the first thing I want to talk about is changing shopping attitudes. And we always talk about, consumer shopping attitudes and behavior. Well, we're going to cover attitudes first, and then we'll cover behavior in a second. Today's consumers think differently about how they shop, pure and simple. They have to. It's been forced on them. Some would like not to. There's times when I go to the store and wonder where these people have been living, but certainly it is. The first thing we have to recognize is consumers are seeking convenience and safety for both the customers and the employees where they choose to shop. Many customers choose the stores based on how well they think that the company is taking care of their employees. And I think that's a good thing. As far as in-store shopping, in-store or in-stock remains the number one customer satisfaction issue. In the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of local market studies we've done over the years, it's always number one, be in stock with the products I want. But now this be in stock takes on a whole new dimension because people don't want to go out that much. They don't want to shop around. They want to get it home safely. Consumers are spending more on essentials, and they're looking for the best value in these uncertain times. So as I said, the disruptors sometimes get amplified. These two issues of being in stock and providing value have always been there, and we've had to contend with them. Now we just have to be that much more aware of them and focus that much more on them to establish our relationship stronger with our customers. Product availability is central. You got to have it. There were so many items that people needed, whether it was toilet paper, milk, hand sanitizer, Clorox wipes. You just couldn't find them anywhere. Then I think the other thing we have to recognize is that if you look at discretionary spending, it hasn't stopped, but certainly the consumer market is much more cautious. They're not just going to run out and spend $100,000 on a new truck, maybe the way they would have pre-COVID. And that applies to everything. The good thing is, though, a lot of the discretionary spending had to do on entertainment and travel. That's all gone away, at least for the near term. And from that, we'll have hopefully a rebound from that. But a lot of people just think it's not going to go back to the way it was. I haven't been on a plane since March 3rd. Don't know when I will again, if I ever do. No, I'll get back on a plane sometime. But that's just the way people are thinking. That's how, again, their attitudes are today. The other thing is that even though there's numerous areas we know that are opening up, many consumers are still reluctant to re-engage out of the home. Why? A couple reasons. One, they're still fearful of what might happen if they wander out into the brave, infected new world. But more importantly, they've discovered an easier way to shop. They really don't have to. And that's been the proliferation of online shopping and how that's impacted doesn't matter what age group, what generational segment it is, male, female, whatever. That's really changed, and we'll get into that a little bit more too. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whether you want to look at it as a negative or opportunistic like me, like something to take advantage of, this trend of re-engaging outside the home or not re-engaging outside the home it's expected to continue, especially as consumers become more accustomed to their new shopping attitudes. And one of the things that they're finding is that they're being satisfied on most of their primary shopping and customer satisfaction needs without leaving their home. And that's a major, major disruptor. What about buying behavior? Well, how are they acting? If that's how their attitudes are and what they're thinking, they're buying, and they're buying a lot. I think it's amazing. You know, when it first hit us, people were saying, "Oh my gosh, Jim, what should I forecast for the year? How can I budget? Should I budget down 25%?" Then you talk to them 2 months later, and they're up 50. No one ever expected that. Now, certainly, we were fortunate that we were deemed essential, and deemed essential almost overall. There were some states that were a little reluctant to go along with that. But still, we were there to be able to be shopped with products that were essential needs. So we had that on our side. But what was interesting is, again, looking at buying behavior, and, you know, I'm a statistician by trade, a consultant at heart. As I look at this, if we look at the number of categories purchased in one transaction, over 2018, it was up 20%. In overall transaction size was up by 5%. And now you think about that, that's very significant. 20% more products being purchased. Now, a lot of explanations for that. Certainly, they don't want to go out as often as they used to, maybe. But the fact is, it's happening. 10% increase in hardware and home improvement sales over 2019, January through July. Now, one of the things that's driving this number down, because people say, well, heck, I was up 45%, or some people were even saying they're up as much as 70, 80%. We've got lumber and building supplies in these numbers, and a lot of the consumer lumber building supply sales were dragging this down, but that's still a 10% increase. You look at Lowe's, you look at Home Depot, and others, you know, look at your co-op or your distributor, your other wholesalers. They're up staggering numbers, 25 to 35% or even more. Numbers that haven't been seen in any time for a long time. Product availability still emerges as the number one factor in store selection. And this does reflect some supply chain issues, although they tend to be working themselves out. And before I get a call on my phone saying, "What do you mean working themselves out?" We're working them out. You know, hats off to our supply chain for the stellar job that they're doing in getting products on the shelf. I'm sure there's a lot of people who disagree with that, but that's just the way it is. When they move the amount of product that they've been moving over the last 4 or 5 months, that's put a tremendous pressure on them. Not just sourcing the product, but being able to get it on the trucks and get it to the stores. So where are DIYers making most of their most recent purchases? A little information about these particular data. We engaged with the Home Improvement Research Institute, which we actually manage the entity, and thought it would be good to track weekly what the impact of COVID-19 was on our industry. And we did it for consumers, DIYers, and we also did it for the pro market. These are DIYer markets. And we're going to go to, or we already started, to a 1 month tracking instead of a weekly tracking. But it's such valuable information, and everybody really loved it. But you can see the home centers, 61% are purchasing their home improvement purchases at home improvement centers, and up from 58 in April. A little bit down from 72% again, but way back in 18. But what this tells you is that we remain strong. The critical mass that had been established prior COVID-19 was maintained, certainly by the home centers. If we look at hardware stores, which it may be a little hard to see, but it's the gray line, they're maintaining solid market share. But the one thing that I think is important to note, you're going to get tired of hearing me saying this, and if you see me on the circuit making doing seminars and making speeches. Online only has really picked up. And, when they say hardware store, home center, that does not mean that they're not purchasing it online and having it delivered, or purchasing online and using curbside pickup. But the online only has picked up. Where are they making it by generations and gender? Because, again, we're numbers people. We need to ask these questions. Well, certainly the boomers and the more matures, and I'm only going to classify matures as those with more gray hair than me, which I don't know how many there are. A lot of them don't have any. But if we look at that, they're certainly more comfortable with shopping at the hardware stores and the home centers. But look at the Gen Z and Gen Ys and Gen Xers. Where are they going? They're discount department stores, online-only retailers. This is a trend that we saw start, and COVID's done nothing but continue this trend. So we're seeing, the channel that they choose to buy, not really that much different across the age groups, but very consistently seeing this assumption we all made that the younger the generation, the more likely they are to either go to a specialist or to go online. As far as males and females, pretty similar, pretty much what we would expect to see on where they're buying their products. How'd they make it? And this is one of those phenomena that I think caught some people off guard, and there was a lot of catch up being played. But if we look at 2020, they were making their most recent purchase in the physical store. So that did not go away. And, people say, well, no, everybody was staying home. Well, they were, except maybe to go to the hardware store or the home center. Of course, one of the reasons for that might be, too, that we were essential, so we were open. But look at online, both buying online and then purchased online and having in-store curbside pickup. Those grew tremendously over 2018. So there's definitely a shift there from how they were purchasing. And this is one of those changes that will probably never go back to the way it was pre-COVID. How are they making their purchases? By supplier. If they're using a department store, certainly less going to the store. It's amazing when we look at the bigger the store, it seems like the less they want to go to the store. But there were definitely differences in where they were shopping for our products, given the type of supplier it was, whether it was a hardware store, a home center, a Sam's, or Costco and a specialty store. And then same thing by generation. The matures very much more comfortable with going to the physical store. And of course, when you'd see them, they're all masked up like everybody else. But when we look at the online, clearly Z, Gen Y, and Gen X are strong. And then especially if we look at Gen Y, we've got the strongest was online and picking it up at the store, picking it up curbside. So if we look at shopping, one of the things that we've been talking about, if you haven't picked it up yet, online really came into its own in a much more profound way than we've seen in a while. So how good was it? Well, in 5 months, the hardware and home improvement channel experienced 10 years of online growth. It's amazing. In 5 months, it advanced that far. Product categories with little or no online penetration, they've seen double-digit growth in online purchases. So there's not any category that can't be excluded from this shopping behavior. 36% purchasing paint and painting supplies, 35% purchase lawn and garden products. Typically things that, you always go to the store to get paint, you always go to the store to get lawn and garden products. Well, not in this environment we're in now. Another factor that's entering into the online with youth driving housing demand, younger and higher income males were much more likely to engage online. And my litmus test is, we're data people, but does it make any sense? Well, certainly it does, because you're younger, you're higher income. Certainly you're going to engage online more frequently than one of the seniors or matures. So that's driving it. And I think the final thing is, and we've always operated on this assumption with all our clients, and it's been documented in all the research that we do. If you achieve or deliver high levels of customer satisfaction, you're going to get a loyal customer. And online is delivering great customer satisfaction. And I think it will remain very, very strong even when customers return to the store. So I think if we think of buy online, pick it up in the store, pick it up curbside, that's going to be becoming everyday normality for shoppers going forward from this day. Let's switch to total retail online shopping, because I always like to check us, and we always like to think we're different and insulated and all those good things. But in quarter two of 2020, U.S. retail online sales grew almost 32% over Q1, 32%. Then if we look at what their expectations are, thanks to our friends at eMarketer, you can see that the percent of total retail sales that's going to online consistently growing from 14.5% to where we are today within 4 years up to 8%. So just shy of 20% of total retail sales will be online. And certainly I don't think we can consider us as an industry or a channel immune to that. What's another one? Urban exodus. And one of my colleagues, who oftentimes shares the podium with me because she shares my name, she says, well, why are you talking about urban exodus? Well, I'll tell you why I'm talking about the urban exodus. It's one of those things that's going to provide tremendous opportunities in those markets. And there's a number of reasons. I call it the perfect storm of factors that's fueling the exodus. And, we can all say this or we can all say that. Number one for sure is COVID-19, work at home, and health concerns. So I'm going to leave where I am. I'm going to go someplace that I feel is safe and I can work from there. There's civil unrest. We all know where it's at. We've heard about it. There's the pursuit of lower cost, lower density areas. People like the fact that they pay less taxes. They get more for their value when they purchase a home because they have a need for space. Contrary to popular belief, millennials and Gen Xers are having kids. Most of them have 2 or 3 animals. They need space for that. I've always been one on the financial side, but rates are the lowest they've been in eons. So all these things working towards this whole issue of urban exodus, why wouldn't you? Better education options for your kids. And again, what is important to recognize is that there is a very active group of millennials and other segment new buyers that are entering home ownership for the first time. And there's not a lot of them going to the city center and purchasing for all the reasons we mentioned. I think the biggest one is that I like is, and this is worded, work from afar and live where you want. And certainly people are doing that, and they're enjoying it. Where are people moving? The small metro suburbs are the fastest growing for single-family construction in Q2. So small metro suburbs, small metros being towns or cities that aren't maybe the state capital. Well, that some of them aren't state capitals because they're small states. But the suburbs there, small metro burbs were followed closely by small towns. I live in a small town. It's 18 miles, 20 miles outside of Indianapolis. It's grown significantly. In fact, it's grown so much it's hard to drive down the street without seeing, a builder truck go by. If we look at some information from the Census Bureau, and we put this together last week, net domestic migration has changed. And I didn't put the pre-19 numbers up here, but principal cities saw net migration negative of 2.5 million. Where'd they go? They went to the suburbs, and for the first time ever in a long, long time, rural areas increased as people migrated to rural areas, again, for all the reasons we mentioned on the previous page. Okay, my final disruptor, and another example of one that's been a disruptor and has just excelled at being a disruptor and resurfaced during the pandemic. Home Depot. They've always been a channel disruptor, and they continue to be today. Whether it's their approach to their customer groups, their operations, their marketing, pricing, they continue to disrupt the status quo no matter where they are. In 1978, 79, all home centers were forced to change how they thought about the business. All hardware stores had to react to this behemoth. No one had ever seen a 100,000 square foot warehouse with forklifts driving around on it descend upon the market. But look where they are today. One of the things that they did too is they continue, we believe, to expand the market. Look at the last 5 months, and clearly their sales have told us there's people buying stuff that they probably weren't going to plan to buy, but they're buying it now because they needed something to do, and the kids were at home. They needed a place to educate them. They needed a place for them to play. They needed office space, and they thought, well, we got the time to do it. Let's do it. And Home Depot, came to the call. I think one of the things that Home Depot has excelled at, and not that others haven't, but clearly they've been consistent, as they've recognized a shift in how their customers want to shop and buy. And my grandfather used to say, oh, you believe that? Put your money where your mouth is. Well, they did. They invested billions in digital and the support for their digital emphasis. And they continue to do so. They're building supply chain. Their web presence is second to none in the industry. The emphasis on digital has really allowed them to connect with their customers. And, it's perfect timing, a three-legged stool, you call it whatever you want. But as younger generations and we became more technologically savvy and people undertook more projects, clearly they are in a position to do that. Now, certainly Lowe's is trying to get their act together on that too, and they will, as they always do. But Home Depot was the first for sure. And, its keen strategy positioned them for the unexpected surge in customers' digital engagement, primarily due to COVID-19. I need this. Where am I going to go? Well, I'm going to go to homedepot.com and check it out. And then we saw people going to ace.com and going to Lowe's.com and Menards and others too. But they were the first one to invest those types of dollars, billions of dollars, developing their digital platform. Continuing with the Home Depot, they remain a channel leader, in many cases, the pioneer. And I think it's important, again, as you recognize if they are a disruptor and we have to acknowledge that and respond to it, what are we acknowledging and responding to? Moving their marketing to e-commerce, free delivery for over 1 million products, customer-friendly mobile app development. I mean, how often have they redone the app? They've got order pickup lockers. They've got digital workshops. They've got curbside pickup, and more and more and more. This which makes them a channel captain, to use an old guy's term, marketing term. But that's why they're so good, and that's why they are a disruptor. So, in closing, I think there's a couple key takeaways. The first is that, as has always been the case, while it seemed a little extreme over the last 6 months, consumer attitudes and behaviors change, and they change typically for the length of time. They will not go back on a lot of what they found, especially when they've experienced something that's better. and all indications are that they have. So as I've said in my seminars for the last 4 or 5 years, Dan and I were talking, Troutchenko and I were talking about this too, my God, get your website up. Get your web presence in order. Well, I'm going to do that next year. We're going to buy some trucks this year. No, you can't buy trucks this year. It's time to get your act together with this. Second thing is that if we look at where the market's going, and people are saying, oh my, their wants and needs have changed. Well, yes and no. The two major things they want are product availability, in stock in the store, if they're stocking it in the store, being able to get what they want online. And then they want value, which means good prices. And since prices, clearly out there, it's transparent, they can get those things. And finally, for the people that were hoping for longing for the days of old, I don't think they're coming back. A lot of things wish they would, but society has changed. We have basically changed and fundamentally changed how we live our lives. And certainly in part of that is how we shop within those lives. So that's my take on what's going on. I always like to close with a quote, and I've been using this one for 41 years. And it's still true today because the future does always arrive a little before we're ready to give up the present. And, when we woke up in March and the present's gone, not ready to give it up, but it's here. I think we have to acknowledge that in all the planning that we do for our business and how we approach our lives. Thanks so much. Again, I'm Jim Robish, and thank you, NRHA, for once again allowing me to be part of the educational program for the All Industry Conference. If any of you have any questions, certainly don't hesitate to get a hold of NRHA or contact me directly. Thank you again.
America is crazy for backyard chickens. Over Easy Chicken Coop offers high quality, easy to assemble coops that are easy to ship and easy to handle. We also offer this popular feeder and water, introduced only 6 months ago. We have sold thousands and can hardly keep up with demand. Order by November 30th for spring delivery, and we will give you 90 days to pay. We are already booked for all of January, so don't delay. Order today.